Chapter 1. The Picture That Destroyed My Life. The air conditioning hummed softly as I sat in my favorite leather recliner. The one Linda always complained was an eyesore, but that I refused to replace. It was the last day of my 60th year on this earth. Tomorrow would be my birthday. Not that anyone in my family seemed to remember this year. I scrolled absently through my iPad, checking stock prices while the evening news droned in the background. The house was too quiet since the kids moved out. Linda was at another one of her book club meetings, though I'd long suspected these weekly gatherings were just excuses to drink wine with her girlfriends. My phone buzzed on the side table. A text from our daughter, Sarah. "Dad, you need to see this." Below the message was a screenshot from Instagram. At first glance, it looked like one of those artsy black and white photos Linda was always posting. Soft focus, dramatic lighting. Then my brain processed what I was actually seeing. The glass of bourbon I'd been holding slipped from my fingers, ice cubes scattering across the hardwood like dice. There was Linda, my Linda, the woman I'd slept beside for 32 years, locked in a passionate embrace with her best friend, Rachel. Not just a friendly hug, not some innocent peck on the cheek. Their lips were pressed together in a way that left no room for interpretation, Rachel's hands gripping Linda's hips possessively. The caption beneath the photo made my vision swim. "When you finally stop hiding your truth." I stared at the timestamp. Last Saturday, the day Linda had claimed she was attending a work conference in the city. I'd even driven her to the train station myself, carrying her overnight bag like some dutiful porter. A strange numbness spread through my body as I tapped to expand the photo. Details jumped out at me, the familiar curve of Linda's neck as Rachel nuzzled against it, the way my wife's fingers tangled in Rachel's hair, exactly like she used to do with mine in our early years. My hands began shaking so violently I had to set the phone down. The room seemed to tilt sideways. I gripped the arms of my chair, my wedding band, the same simple gold band I'd worn since 1991, digging into my finger. That's when I noticed Linda's iPad propped on the coffee table. She'd been using it earlier to plan one of her charity events. I'd never been the type to snoop through my wife's things. Never had reason to. Now, my fingers moved of their own accord. The device unlocked with my fingerprint, a small betrayal of trust I'd never indulged in before tonight. Her Messages app was still open. What I found there would haunt me for the rest of my life. Months of conversations. Not weeks, months. Graphic photos exchanged when I was in the next room. Discussions about how Rachel's divorce had finally gone through. Thank God that bitch is out of the picture for good. Plans for Linda to leave me once our youngest graduated college. But the message that stopped my heart was from just 2 hours ago. "One more week, baby, then we can stop hiding. Don't worry about Tom, my lawyer says, with his pension and the house equity. I'll be set for life." A reply from Rachel. "Can't wait to see the look on his face when you drop the bomb." I sat there in the gathering darkness, the ice from my spilled drink melting into the rug, and realized with terrible clarity, the woman I'd built my life with hadn't just betrayed me. She'd been laughing at me, planning her escape, calculating how much she could take from me on her way out. And tomorrow, my goddamn birthday, she was going to make her move. Chapter 2. The Birthday Confrontation. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 3 a.m. as I sat in my study. The glow from Linda's iPad casting eerie shadows across the oak-paneled walls. My hands had stopped shaking hours ago, replaced by a cold, calculating numbness that seemed to seep into my bones. I'd spent the night methodically documenting every betrayal. Screenshots of text messages, copies of hotel receipts, bank statements showing transfers to an account I'd never known existed. $15,000 moved just last month to something called LKR Travel Fund. The more I uncovered, the more a terrifying clarity settled over me. This wasn't some impulsive affair. This was a carefully orchestrated escape plan, years in the making. The final blow came when I accessed our cloud storage. There, in a folder named Charity Events, I found dozens of photos of Linda and Rachel, our bed, our vacation home in the Catskills, even my goddamn office at work. The timestamps stretched back 18 months. I poured another bourbon, the ice long since melted. The amber liquid burned my throat as I stared at our wedding photo on the wall. Linda, in that simple white dress she'd loved so much. Me looking impossibly young in my tux. We'd been so poor then, scraping together rent for that tiny apartment above the hardware store. A car door slammed outside. Through the window, I watched Rachel's Lexus pull away from our house, taillights disappearing down the street. Linda stood on the porch for a moment, adjusting her blouse before reaching for her keys. I moved quickly. By the time she entered, I was sitting at the kitchen island with 2 fresh cups of coffee, just like every morning for 32 years. The manila folder lay between us, innocuous as a grocery list. "You're up early," Linda said, dropping her purse on the counter. She smelled like someone else's perfume, something floral and expensive. "Couldn't sleep?" "Not really." I pushed the folder toward her. "Happy birthday to me." Her fingers hesitated before flipping it open. The color drained from her face when she saw the Instagram photo staring back at her, the one of her and Rachel locked in that passionate kiss. For a long moment, the only sound was the refrigerator humming. When she finally looked up, her expression had changed. The initial shock gave way to something else, not guilt, not remorse, but a weary resignation that cut deeper than any apology could have. "I was going to tell you today," she said, closing the folder with deliberate calm. The casualness of it, the sheer fucking audacity, made me laugh. It was a harsh, ugly sound that startled us both. "Were you also going to tell me about the money?" I slid another document across the counter of the bank transfers. "Or the consultation with Goldstein Stern last week? Or how about the draft separation agreement your lawyer sent you?" I tapped the iPad screen, bringing up the email. "The one where you ask for 60% of everything we've built?" Linda's coffee cup clattered against the saucer. For the first time since she'd walked in, I saw genuine fear flicker across her face. "Tom, please, don't." My voice surprised me with its steadiness. "Just don't." I stood and walked to the window. Dawn was breaking over the backyard, painting the pool in hues of pink and gold. We put that pool in for the kids' 10th birthdays. I remembered Linda laughing as she cannonballed in, her red bikini flashing in the sunlight. When I turned back, she was crying. But they weren't the tears I'd imagined, no dramatic sobs, no begging for forgiveness, just silent streaks of mascara down her cheeks as she methodically wiped her fingers on a napkin. "It's not what you think," she said finally. I almost admired how convincingly the lie rolled off her tongue. Almost. Reaching into the folder, I pulled out the final photo of the one of them in our bed. The one with Rachel wearing my favorite shirt, the blue Oxford I'd been searching for last month. "Then explain this." Linda's breath hitched. Her carefully constructed composure cracked just enough for me to see the truth she hadn't expected to get caught. "Not like this. Not with so much evidence." We stood there in the morning light, 2 strangers surrounded by the ruins of our life together. The clock ticked. The coffee cooled. Somewhere in the distance, a lawnmower started up. Finally, Linda squared her shoulders. When she spoke, her voice was steady. "I want a divorce." Chapter 3. The Divorce Papers. The knock at the door came at precisely 7:15 a.m. I knew the exact time because I'd been sitting at the kitchen island since 4:30, watching the digital clock on the microwave tick away what remained of my marriage. The coffee in my mug had gone cold hours ago, its surface forming a wrinkled skin that mirrored how I felt, dried out, hardened, no longer recognizable. When I opened the door, the morning sun blinded me momentarily. The process server standing on my porch couldn't have been more than 25, his baby face clashing with the gravity of his task. He held out the thick manila envelope like it might bite him. "Mr. Whitmore, you've been served." The envelope was heavier than I expected, both physically and metaphorically. I carried it to my study, the same room where just days earlier I discovered my wife's betrayal. The irony wasn't lost on me as I used my silver letter opener, a gift from Linda for our 20th anniversary, to slit the top. The first page hit me like a sucker punch. in a matter of the marriage of Linda K. Whitmore and Thomas R. Whitmore. The bold black letters seemed to scream from the page. My hands, which had remained steady through the initial shock, now trembled slightly as I turned the pages. The numbers swam before my eyes. Primary residence, marital home, 100% to respondent. Vacation property in the Catskills, 100% to respondent. 60% of petitioner's pension and retirement accounts. $8,500 per month in permanent alimony. Full ownership of both vehicles. 70% of investment portfolio. But it was attachment C that made my blood run cold. Linda's sworn affidavit, page after page, painted me as a controlling, emotionally abusive husband who had systematically cut her off for financial independence. According to her testimony, I'd forced her to quit her teaching job in 2005, denied her access to reasonable spending money, made all financial decisions without her input, created an environment of economic coercion. The sheer audacity took my breath away. After 32 years of shared bank accounts, after putting her through her master's program, after funding every one of her failed business ventures, the pottery studio, the ill-fated catering company, the interior design consultancy that never got off the ground, this was her narrative. My fingers left damp prints on the polished mahogany desk as I spread out the documents. The notarized pages smelled faintly of toner and betrayal. I reached for my phone to call my daughter, but it rang before I could dial. Sarah's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated before answering, already knowing this wouldn't be pleasant. Dad? Her voice carried that tentative tone she used when treading on thin ice. Mom says you're refusing to cooperate with the divorce mediation. I closed my eyes, counting to 3 before responding. Did she tell you why we're getting divorced? A pause, then the carefully rehearsed line. She said you've grown apart, that you've both been unhappy for years. I opened my laptop with one hand, forwarding the Instagram photo to Sarah's phone. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the hum of the refrigerator down the hall. When Sarah finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Oh my God, does Emily know? Not yet. I rubbed my temples where a headache was forming. Your mother was apparently planning to tell everyone after she'd already cleaned me out. I heard Sarah take a shuddering breath. In the background, I could make out the sounds of her apartment, her boyfriend making coffee, the dog's nails clicking on hardwood. A normal morning, worlds away from my current reality. What are you going to do? She finally asked. Through the study window, I watched our neighbor Mr. Peterson mow his lawn, the rhythmic back and forth of his movements almost hypnotic. Somewhere down the street, a child laughed. The world continued turning, completely indifferent to my personal catastrophe. I'm going to fight. The words came out colder than I intended. For the first time since discovering the affair, I felt something other than gut-wrenching pain. I felt purpose. Chapter 4. The Barracuda. The waiting room of Resnick Associates smelled like leather and victory. The walls were lined with framed newspaper clippings. High-profile CEO divorced with only $500,000 settlement. Wife's hidden millions discovered in offshore accounts. Each one a testament to Marty Resnick's particular brand of legal annihilation. I'd barely sat down when a door burst open. Tom Whitmore, a barrel-chested man with a silver crew cut and a navy suit that probably cost more than my first car, strode toward me. Hand extended. Marty Resnick. Heard a lot about you. His grip could have crushed walnuts. Come on back. We got work to do. His office was organized chaos, stacks of files, legal volumes with colored tabs sticking out, 2 flat-screen monitors displaying spreadsheets. A boxing glove, signed by Muhammad Ali, hung on the wall behind his desk. Marty tossed Linda's petition onto a teetering pile. Let me guess, she claims you're abusive, controlling, and she deserves everything because she gave up her career to raise your kids? I blinked. How did? Because they all say that. He powered up his computer. First thing tomorrow, we subpoena every financial record from the past 20 years. If your wife so much as pocketed a nickel from a lemonade stand, we'll find it. The smoking gun. 2 days later, Marty called me into his office. His grin was predatory. Take a look at this. He pointed to a spreadsheet. Your wife's been making regular cash withdrawals, $9,500 every month for the past 3 years. Always under the $10,000 reporting threshold. Clever girl. I stared at the numbers. That's over $300,000. Yep, and guess where it went? He flipped to another document, a lease agreement for a luxury apartment in the city, signed by Rachel Henderson and Linda K. Whitmore. They've been playing house since at least 2021, Marty said, which means dissipation of marital assets. The term tasted bitter. Marty's teeth gleamed. Bingo. Judge Hargrove hates that shit. Courtroom showdown. The courthouse smelled like industrial cleaner and sweat. Linda sat at the plaintiff's table in a demure gray suit, Rachel hovering protectively behind her. She didn't look at me once. The hearing lasted 17 minutes. When Marty presented the evidence, the withdrawals, the lease, photos of Linda's BMW parked at the apartment for days at a time, her attorney started sweating through his Armani suit. Judge Hargrove, a no-nonsense woman with steel gray hair, peered over her glasses. MS. Whitmore, would you care to explain why you've been maintaining a separate residence with marital funds? Linda's mouth opened. Nothing came out. The gavel came down like a gunshot. Full forensic accounting ordered. All assets frozen immediately. MS. Whitmore will vacate the marital home by end of day Friday. As we left the courtroom, Linda finally met my eyes. The fear I saw there should have made me feel victorious. Instead, I just felt tired. Chapter 5. The Other Woman's Secret. The call came at 2:37 a.m. I've been staring at the ceiling for hours, the judge's gavel still echoing in my skull, when my phone lit up the nightstand. Unknown number. Mr. Whitmore? A woman's voice, hushed and urgent. You don't know me, but I used to work with Rachel Henderson. There's something you need to know. I was suddenly wide awake. Who is this? A pause. Let's just say I owe Rachel some payback. Check your email. The line went dead. The email. The message contained 3 attachments. A 2018 police report from Santa Barbara. Rachel arrested for embezzling $220,000 from her former law firm. Screenshots of texts between Rachel and Linda discussing how to protect the nest egg. A photo that made my blood freeze. Rachel wearing Linda's emerald necklace, our 25th anniversary gift, at what appeared to be a pawn shop. Marty was at my door by 4 a.m. Ty Askew, eyes blazing with the thrill of the hunt. This changes everything, he said, pacing my kitchen. If Rachel has a fraud conviction and she's advising Linda on finances, that's conspiracy to dissipate assets. Judge Hargrove will eat them alive. Linda's desperation. She showed up unannounced at 7:15 a.m., pounding on the door like a stranger. The composed woman from court was gone. Her hair was messy, her eyes bloodshot. Tom, we need to talk. Her voice cracked. Just you and me. No lawyers. I kept the chain on. Say what you came to say. She swallowed hard. Rachel, she hasn't been honest with me about a lot of things. A tear tracked through her foundation. I think. My laugh cut her off. You think? After 3 years together, you're just now realizing your girlfriend a con artist? Linda flinched. I made mistakes, but you have to believe me. I never meant. Save it for the judge. I closed the door on her pleading face. The trap. Marty's plan was beautiful in its simplicity. We leaked just enough to Rachel through a fake email from Linda's account that she'd soon be facing criminal charges. By noon, security footage showed her clearing out the secret apartment. By 3 p.m., she'd withdrawn $18,000 in cash. And at 5:27 p.m., as Rachel tried boarding a flight to Cancun with $40,000 stuffed in her luggage, Homeland Security took her into custody for currency reporting violations. Marty's text came through as I watched the sunset. Judge just granted our motion. All marital assets revert to you pending final settlement. Linda gets nothing until we complete discovery. I should have felt triumphant. All I felt was empty. Chapter 6. The Safe Deposit Box. The bank's marble floors echoed under my dress shoes as I followed the manager through the vault door. The air smelled of cold metal and old money, the kind of scent that usually comforted me. Today, it made my stomach churn. Right this way, Mr. Whitmore. The manager Peterson, according to his brass name tag, led me to box 217. You'll need both keys, of course. I fished Linda's key from my pocket, the one I'd found taped behind her jewelry case during the asset inventory. My own key had lived on my keyring for 20 years, worn smooth from use. The lock turned with a heavy clunk. Inside lay a single manila envelope, its edges yellowed with age. No markings, no label, just a faint scent of Linda's perfume clinging to it. That same Chanel No. 5 she'd worn since our honeymoon. My hands didn't shake as I opened it. That surprised me. The letter. The paper crackled as I unfolded it. Not Linda's looping cursive, but her sister Margaret's sharp, angular handwriting. Dated 3 months before Margaret's car wrapped itself around a telephone pole. Linda, I can't keep lying for you. Not after today. Dr. Rosen confirmed the damage is permanent. You'll never have children after what happened. If you don't tell Tom the truth about the baby and why you really married him, I will. This isn't just about you anymore. Meg, the date stamp blurred before my eyes. June 1992, 6 weeks before our wedding. Rachel's confession. My phone buzzed with Marty's latest email attachment, a transcribed jailhouse interview. Rachel, desperate to avoid felony charges, had started singing like a canary. Linda told me she picked Tom because he was safe, stable, that she'd been pregnant by some musician named James when they met, but she lost the baby after a bad fall. Said it was a blessing let her reset with a nice guy who'd never suspect a thing. I read the words 3 times before they made sense. The kitchen tile was cold against my forehead when I came to, my left hand stinging from where I'd apparently put it through the cabinet door. The girls arrived. Tires screeched outside. Through the window, I watched Emily's Audi nearly take out my hydrangeas as she and Sarah spilled out, their faces mirror images of shock and rage. Sarah reached me first, her phone thrust in my face. Did you know about this? The screen showed a text thread with Linda from last Thanksgiving. Sarah, sweetheart, you'll understand when you're older. Some loves are for living, others are for surviving. Daddy would never understand real passion. Emily stood rigid by the fireplace, her Yale Law School posture failing to hide how badly she was shaking. We met with Marty this morning. We're submitting affidavits for your side. Full no contact with Mom until she gets evaluated. I wanted to feel victorious. Instead, I pulled them both into a hug, their familiar scents, Sarah's vanilla shampoo, Emily's citrus perfume, now mingled with the acrid tang of betrayal. The letter crinkled in my back pocket. The midnight call. My phone lit up at 2:17 a.m. Linda's number. I let go to voicemail. Tom, I know you found Margaret's letter. Her voice sounded raw, like she'd been screaming. It wasn't like that. I did love you. After James left, and then the miscarriage. I was so scared you'd think I was damaged goods. A wet, shuddering breath. By the time I realized you wouldn't have cared, the lie had become everything. The beep cut her off. I deleted it without listening a second time. The photograph. It fell out when I emptied the safe deposit box. The next morning, a faded Polaroid stuck to the bottom. Linda, young and glowing, in a sundress I remembered. Beside her, a lanky musician type with a guitar slung across his back. His hand rested possessively on her still flat stomach. Written on the border in smudged ink, James me, 3 months. Forever this time. I tore it down the middle before I could think better of it. The halves fluttered into the shredder like falling leaves. Chapter 7. The Final Reckoning. The courthouse was packed. Reporters crowded the back benches, their cameras clicking like crickets. I spotted Sarah and Emily in the front row, their faces drawn tight. Between them sat an older woman I didn't recognize, late 60s, steel gray hair pulled into a severe bun, her hands clutching a patent leather purse like it was a life preserver. Linda entered alone. No Rachel, no lawyer, just my wife of 32 years in a cheap navy suit 2 sizes too big, her once lustrous hair now a dull brown mop. She didn't look at me as she took her seat at the defendant's table. Judge Hargrove adjusted her glasses. Ms. Whitmore, I see you're representing yourself today. That's highly inadvisable. Linda's voice was barely audible. I dismiss my counsel, Your Honor. Marty leaned in, his aftershave sharp in my nostrils. She's cutting a deal. Watch. The witness. The bailiff swore in the mystery woman Eleanor Cartwright, retired nurse from St. Vincent's maternity ward. Her hands trembled as she took the stand. I remember Margaret Whitmore bringing her sister to the ER in May 1992. She began. Severe uterine hemorrhage from a botched procedure. Her eyes flicked to Linda. Margaret kept saying, "What were you thinking? James is gone. He's not coming back for this." Linda made a small, wounded noise. Eleanor continued. When Linda regained consciousness, she made Margaret swear never to tell. Said her new boyfriend, a solid man with good prospects, would marry her if he thought the miscarriage was an accident. The courtroom erupted. The confession. Linda stood abruptly. Your Honor, may I address the court? Judge Hargrove sighed. Ms. Whitmore, anything you say now can. I know. Linda turned to face me for the first time in months. Her mascara was already running. Tom, I was 22 and terrified. James left me pregnant and penniless. Then you came along, kind, stable, everything he wasn't. A tear splashed onto the defense table. I meant to tell you, after Sarah was born, after Emily. But the lie had roots by then. And then Rachel. She laughed bitterly. Turns out karma's a bitch with a law degree. The ruling. Judge Hargrove's gavel cracked like a gunshot. Given the evidence of fraud upon the court, I'm vacating all prior rulings. She fixed Linda with a withering stare. Ms. Whitmore, you'll be lucky to leave this courtroom with the clothes on your back. But as the bailiffs moved in, it was me Linda looked at not with anger, but something worse. Relief. You win, Tom. I watched them lead her away, half expecting to feel triumphant. All I felt was the weight of 3 decades of lies pressing down on my chest. Sarah's hand found mine. Dad? I squeezed back, too choked to speak. Outside. The first autumn leaves swirled against the courthouse steps, red as blood, gold as the wedding band I'd finally pried off that morning. 1 year later, the storage unit smelled of dust and forgotten things. Linda's belongings had been auctioned off to pay her legal debts, but no one wanted box number 42, the one marked memories, in her looping cursive. The manager handed me the bolt cutters with a sympathetic shrug. Inside, I found our wedding album. She'd scratch her face out of every photo, the tiny bronze baby shoes we'd bought when Sarah was born, and at the bottom, a sealed envelope with my name on it. The letter. Tom, if you're reading this, I lost. And you're still the same sentimental fool who can't let go. James died last year. Heroin, naturally. You showed up at my door 5 months before you found the Instagram photo broke. Sick and still prettier than any man has a right to be. We slept together that night, for old time's sake. The funny part? I got pregnant again at 52. The doctor called it a miracle. James called it a paycheck. And you, well, you'd have called it yours, wouldn't you? I took care of it the same way I did in 92. Some patterns just keep repeating. Tell the girls I love them, or don't. Either way, we're finally even. L***, the discovery. The ultrasound photo fluttered to the ground. Dated 8 months ago, around the time Linda started wearing those loose tunics. Around the time Rachel suddenly reconciled with her. The technician's notation in the corner. 14 weeks. Strong heartbeat. The visit. The minimum security prison visiting room stank of bleach and regret. Linda looked older and orange. Her hands chapped from industrial soap. You kept it, she said, staring at the ultrasound in my hand. Then lost it. My voice sounded alien to my own ears. She smiled that same crooked smile that had hooked me in 1990. Like I said, patterns. The guard called time. As she stood to leave, I finally asked the question that had haunted me for a year. Was any of it real? Linda paused at the door, her cuffs glinting in the fluorescent light. The alimony payments were. The aftermath. I spread Margaret's ashes yesterday. Sarah and Emily stood beside me on the Cape Cod bluffs where Linda and I first said, I love you. The wind stole the powder before it could hit the waves, just like it stole everything else. Emily squeezed my hand. "You okay, Dad?" The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the Atlantic in shades of gold and violet. Somewhere out there, maybe James was floating too. "Getting there," I said, and for the first time in 33 years, it wasn't a lie.